Colonel William Light was certainly one of the great pioneers of South Australia. So too was Charles Todd, the man who helped create the overland telegraph. He also kept meticulous weather records, and now those records are being used to try and unlock some of the mysteries of climate change.
South Australia isolated showers and possible thunder will persist in southern agricultural
Port Augusta, 26 there at Port Lincoln,
Relatively
23
hot
there.
overnight.
Since the dawn of time, humans have pondered what the new day will bring, weather-wise. One of the people trying to answer the question is Dr. Rob Allan. The Adelaide-born climate scientist works for the Hadley Centre in the UK.
Very valuable in this part of the world.
While Rob Allan is preoccupied with tomorrow's weather and specifically climate change, he's in Adelaide looking at some very old weather maps, the earliest of which was drawn more than 140 years ago by Charles Todd, the man who built the overland telegraph.
He was at the forefront in Adelaide of all the information coming in from around the world, which was then disseminated out to other parts of Australia. So he was annotating and keeping records of various meteorological observations from places like Batavia, now Jakarta, Singapore, Manila, even Cocos Island and places in New Zealand.
And here we have Todd's very first journal.
Todd is credited with producing Australia's first weather forecast. His daily journals also include newspaper clippings of contemporary weather news and events, floods, storms, droughts. What makes them truly unique, though, according to Mac Benoit, is their range. Todd kept them meticulously from the 1870s until the early 1900s.
11,000 days of weather in great detail, yes. Virtually anything you would want to know about weather events in that 31-year period are captured in these journals, and that is for virtually the whole of Eastern Australia.
Scientists can now access the journals because, as Stateline reported last year, Mac Benoit and a team of volunteers have been digitising them and putting them online. That's been a treasure trove for the project Rob Allan heads. It's called ACRE, which stands for Atmospheric Circulation Reconstructions over the Earth. Put simply, they hope to use old records to recreate what the Earth's weather was like, particularly the extreme events.
Extremes are very important, and we need to be able to get back over those 100 or 200 years. Because they have the most impact on society, on civilization, etc., we really need to know how these things impact across the board.
Rob Allan argues a better historical record means more accurate models for seasonal forecasts can be built, a particular benefit for farmers. But it's the question of climate change and the future that he argues might be better answered by the past.
For the climate change, what its real value is in terms of providing a database that climate models can be tested against. Can they capture the last couple of hundred years of the weather sufficiently well? And then if they do, we feel more confident about using them to making projections into the future with regards to global warming.
Have we been able to subject climate change models to that sort of scrutiny beforehand?
Not without that data, not that length of data.
It was data that landed the Hadley Centre into the ClimateGate controversy last year, when it was accused of manipulating research to prove that global warming was caused by man. Rob Allan hopes his work can be used to retest some of the disputed models. And Professor Ian Plimer, for one, will be watching with interest.
We'd had an even older glaciation here.
He's critical of how the science and politics of climate change have unfolded, but he is a great supporter of new knowledge.
Well, the only way we can understand modern climate is to look into the past, and I think that's magnificent. As long as the data has not been corrected, as a lot of modern data has been, and as long as it's integrated with older data, which we get from archaeology and which we get from geology.
But it's not just old maps that might help provide new insights into our climate. This is the State Herbarium, and some of the specimens here have their own stories to tell about the weather. Fran McGillivray is a phenologist, a person who studies the timing of seasonal change. Plants are the living embodiments of the seasons, and so to Fran McGillivray, these aren't dried arrangements, they're sources of data from seasons past.
From each specimen, I can get a range of data which then I can analyse to see how flowering times have changed over the period.
Fran McGillivray focused on native orchids because they have short, definite flowering times, making changes easy to pick. Since 1975, she says there have been dramatic alterations, correlating with higher temperatures and lower rainfall.
3 weeks advance in 3 decades is a huge change. I think we can definitely say that the climate is changing, and at the present time it's changing at quite an alarming rate. But
who done it's another question.
Who did it is another question, and I hope there's another researcher out there who's working on that.
For Fran McGillivray, the next step in her project will be to examine other plants to see if they too show similar patterns. None of this, of course, will drain the climate change debate, and specifically the contribution of human activity, of controversy. But perhaps some old maps and some old plants will help with a better understanding of the weather.